Okay, I'm live. Okay, now I'm live, or so it says. If you are here watching, please just say hi in the comments because it will tell me I have viewers, but not who they are. So right now I have 0 viewers. So I'm just going to smile at the screen for a little longer, or maybe not. We'll talk about the weather. How about that? It's hot. It's going to get hotter. My frame rate's too low. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it either. It's very hot here in New Jersey. I suspect it's a lot hotter in other places like out west where I think it's in the hundred and somethings. We're supposed to be in the 90s today through Saturday, I think. I think it's supposed to rain Saturday and cool things off. So Sunday will be cooler. But yeah, it's miserable weather. Good old climate change, enhancing our lives. All right, my frame rate. Sharon! Hey, Sharon. Is it boiling hot there too? So this is weird, Sharon. I see your comment, but it doesn't show me that I have any viewers. Who knows? Facebook is Facebook. All right, well, since I have Sharon here, I can see. Thank you for commenting. Oh, it's only 84, Sharon. Lucky you. Oh, I keep getting a sign that says my frame rate is too low. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. Something video related. And I'm supposed to learn more, but I'm in the middle of a live, so I can't learn more at the moment. All right, so this is me, Nancy Herkness, romance author, doing Writer Unedited number 4, my Facebook Live. It's just me sitting at my writing desk. No makeup except lipstick, because I always wear lipstick. Okay, please update or viewers may expect. Dear. Sorry, computer problems. Anyway, what was I saying? Ah, yes, no makeup, no fancy background, except I do put my book in a vase of fake tulips back there every time, because you're supposed to, evidently, if you're doing videos. I saw that in some webinar somewhere. And I have no script, just some notes so that I don't forget to tell people things. Don't forget to tell you guys things. If you have any questions, please type them in the comments because I would love to answer your questions. So I'm just going to start talking here. Oh, I say that I'm nothing's not specially dressed, which is true, but I am wearing a new pair of earrings, which I think are just adorable. My sister gave them to me. I'm going to try to let you see it. See, they're little, it's books on a shelf. No, this way. Oh, come on, hold still. Sorry. Here. Got it. Ugh. See, they're little books on a shelf. How cute is that? They're very colorful and they're lucite, so they're very lightweight. Isn't that cute? Right, Sharon? I thought those were really cool too. Okay, so now you've seen my earrings. Those are my fanciness for today. So what am I working on now? I am hard at work on the second book in the Royal Caleva series, which, as you know from my announcement last week, is about Luis, who is the king of Caleva, a very hot silver fox, who's had very bad luck in his love life up to this point. And he meets our heroine in Iowa. Now, if you've read Royal Caleva, you will know that Iowa is significant. And yes, you find out why right at the beginning of this next book, of Luis's book. So I'm working like a dog on that, making great progress, having a lot of fun with it. And I am also in the process of editing How to Plan a Royal Wedding. And that is the sequel, it's just a novella, sequel to Royal Caleva Gabriel, book 1, which is behind me. No, behind me there. And it will be free to all my newsletter subscribers. Of course, I started out writing just a short story to be the sequel, just to give away to my newsletter subscribers, but I am incapable of writing short, as you may have guessed from the 548 pages of Gabrielle's book. So this turned into a novella, and it even turned, I thought it was going to be just kind of light and fun and fluffy because, as you can imagine, Quinn is not really excited about all the pomp and circumstance of a royal wedding. So, but there's a big emotional scene at the end of the novella, which I didn't know was going to happen because my muse surprises even me sometimes. Diana's here. Yay. Diana said she had written a note to herself on her refrigerator. So I appreciate that, Diana. So nice to have you here. All right. Try and do that. So that's what I'm working. So I'm editing the novella, and I will be sending it off to my copy editor in August. And hopefully she won't have too many changes, and it will be ready to give to you, my newsletter subscribers. Please subscribe to my newsletter if you would like it. In October, I hope. Hopefully early October. Shouldn't be a problem to get it done by then. And I'm very excited because I designed the cover myself, and I'll have a reveal on the cover soon. I just want to make sure I've got it completely nailed down before I tempt you with it. But it's going to be fun. Let's see, what else? Oh, so, we're talking about a sequel. So last week, I asked you, and I also asked my newsletter subscribers. I talk about them a lot, right? Because I love you guys, my subscribers. What they might like to see is a prequel to Royal Caleva Gabriel. Again, something I could give away to subscribers and hopefully tempt them, those who have not read Royal Caleva Gabriel, tempt them into reading it. So people came up with some great ideas. A very popular one was Quinn's job interview with Mikkel, which I thought would be a lot of fun. And it was a little harder to find something for Gabriel because one person suggested the moment where he decides to give up playing his guitar. But some people said, they just kind of felt so terrible for his trauma that they weren't sure they wanted to see more of it. So at any rate, those are great ideas, and I still may go back to them, in fact. But I had a brainstorm, which I think I mentioned last week too, about about sending the heroes from my Wager of Hearts series, which are the books where most of my readers have probably found me, down to Caleva to go to the music festival, which has been nicknamed Dragon Fest, of course, that Gabriel organizes in Caleva, because I thought that could be really fun. It's always fun to do crossovers with characters, right? So because I started thinking about that, I got out all the Wager of Hearts books. So the CEO buys in with Nathan, the All-Star Ante's Up with Luke, and the VIP doubles down with Gavin. And I started sort of just reviewing them, because if I'm going to write about these characters, these books came out several years ago, shall we say. So I don't remember everything about them, so I need to review them. And it just started reminding me of things about the books from when I wrote them. So I thought I might share some of them with you. So in the CEO Buys In, this is Nathan Trainor's an engineer, and I was struggling with sort of his backstory. I wasn't coming up with anything good, and I had a meeting with my wonderful editor at the time, Jovan Sotak, and she and I were sitting and talking, and she came up with an idea that his father was military, and that this caused some conflict between them, because Nathan is, a sort of tech genius, kind of a nerd in his youth. And his father, there's a long tradition in their family of going into the military, and so his father is not happy that he didn't, basically. They have some problems with that. And the reason that Jovan came up with this is that evidently there's a character in NCIS named Timothy McGee. I confess that I do not watch NCIS, so I didn't know this character, whose father, I think, was an admiral in the Navy. I think he's dead at the beginning of the show, but there's still all these complicated dynamics in the relationship between Timothy McGee, the character in NCIS, and this military father, because Timothy's, works for NCIS, but he's not actually a Navy man. And, so the whole non-military military conflict starts there. And it absolutely gave a whole new dimension to Nathan's character. And I have been eternally grateful to Jovan for suggesting that. So Jovan, if you're listening, thank you. Really appreciate it. So what else was I going to tell you? Oh, so in the All-Star Ante's Up, which is Luke Archer and Miranda. Um, Two things. So I'm not a sports person, but my ex-husband is, and we were still married when I was writing this book. So I was trying to figure out how many Super Bowl rings to give Luke Archer, and I wanted to give him 6, but my ex told me no, that was just not believable. Nobody wins 6 Super Bowl rings. So I gave him 5, which my ex thought was pushing it. And then you all know what happened. That darn Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowl rings before he retired for the second time. And I've always wanted to go back and add Super Bowl rings to Luke, but unfortunately, my publisher, doesn't think that's the most important thing in the world. They have other things to spend their time on. But that's why he only has 5 Super Bowl rings. Ugh, bummer. Although, to be fair, I was only going to do 6. So. And then the other thing I remembered about this book, and I actually read through the scene again, was that when Miranda takes Luke on a cultural tour of New York City, because, he's been benched because of his injury, and he's not very happy about it, so he's looking for distraction. Anyway, she takes him to all the places I love in New York. She takes him to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where they see the Temple of Dendur and the Van Goghs, which are 2 things I always visit when I'm there. Oh, and the Mrs. Astor's Moon Court. I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's this lovely Asian garden room. So she takes him there, and then she takes him to the Morgan Library, where they see one of the 3 Gutenberg Bibles that the Morgan Library owns, and I love the Morgan Library. It's one of my favorite places in New York. And they go to a couple of other museums, and then they go to the New York City Ballet, because she says as an athlete, she thinks he will appreciate the athleticism of the dancers. And he does, actually. I think he's kind of surprised. So that just brought back fun memories of the All-Star. And then I was remembering about the VIP doubles down, a couple things. So number one, for those of you who remember my little gray cat, Pie, may she rest in peace, Pie is in this book. Pie is Allie's cat. And it's funny because somebody commented on this recently on a writer forum that, if you give your characters pets, you have to worry about how to take care of them if they go away. And I remember that happened in this book because Gavin takes Allie out to his house in Southampton, his beautiful mansion, etc., that has its own skating rink in Southampton. And I realized that I don't know, I couldn't just endow her with a pet sitter. So they take Pie out in the limousine in a carrying case, and Pie hangs out in Southampton. And that was fun, I have to say. So yeah, you have to worry about your pets. Of course, any pet owner who's responsible worries about their pets. Obviously, I worry about my pets. In fact, had a little issue with Skoda this morning. He had to go to the emergency vet. He's fine. It's something that he has had problems with in the past, but it was just a little more dramatic today. So, and my regular vet was closed, of course, because Skoda only has emergencies when my regular vet is closed. So yeah, us pet owners, we have extra responsibilities, right? And then the other thing that really struck me about the VIP doubles down, because Gavin is a best-selling author with a lot of pressure on him to produce, and I gave him a terrible, terrible, terrible case of writer's block in this book. Now, I'm a writer, so you would think I would know a lot about that, but the truth is I hadn't ever had really bad writer's block at the time I wrote this book. I had only, there'd maybe been a couple of days where I would get frustrated with the plot and have to walk away and come back later. But I was always able to keep writing. And so I don't think I truly understood his pain until the pandemic hit. And I was suffering from a case of burnout to begin with, and then all of the anxiety of the pandemic. And I actually didn't write for 8 months right at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was just horrible. And in fact, I was honestly afraid I would never write again, which was probably being a little dramatic, but that's how empty I felt. But luckily, I got my well refilled, my creative well refilled, mostly by reading a lot, which I think a lot of people did during the pandemic, or at least, again, at the beginning of it. And that's how Royal Caleva was born. So, never give up. And oh, and then the other thing I remembered is that I don't know if some people may have noticed this. So, Nathan is Nathan Trainer, Luke is Luke Archer, and Gavin is Gavin Miller. So their last names are all active. They're all doers, right? I wanted these are self-made billionaires, so I decided they had to be real go get them kind of doers. So that's why they have their names. That is literally why I did it. All right, so since I was talking about Wager of Hearts, and I always like to show you what I call writing artifacts, I thought I would show you two things that came out that actually my publisher gave me when Wager of Hearts came out. So if you know the stories of Wager of Hearts, you know that my heroes, they get a little drunk in a very exclusive club one night, and they make a wager, a bet on love, that they each have to find love within a year, and they sign it with very fancy pens. So my wonderful publisher, when the CEO Buys In came out, sent me this gorgeous, hope you can see it, snazzy pen. Now, it's not a Mont Blanc, which is what my heroes sign with, but it's still a very, very beautiful pen. And I have kept it all these years in its own box because I don't want it damaged, because I treasure it, right? My publisher, Montlake, is just, they've always been so terrific. And then the other thing my publisher sent me, when the CEO Buys In hit the 50,000 copies sold mark, they sent me a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne because they knew that was my favorite, and also because, it's fancy and expensive and probably what my billionaires drink on a regular basis. So it's empty now. I drank it, of course, but I've always kept the bottle because it was such a celebration when the book hit that 50,000. It hit it very quickly, too, so it was just very exciting. So hence Dom Perignon. So, I think that's all I have to talk about. Does anybody have questions that they want to type in for me? No questions? Anyone? I'm going to just type a random letter in here to make sure that your questions are coming through. Let's see. Right, Sharon? Yeah, you can send me a bottle of Dom Perignon anytime. Anytime. I will be happy to take it. Okay, I'm not seeing questions, so I will be here next week at 2 o'clock if you have questions. Diana has a question for me. Yay! Diana says, how long have you been writing? Well, there's a short answer and a long answer. So since we have time, I'll go into the long answer. I've probably been writing most of my conscious life since I learned how to write. I started out writing poetry, honestly. I wrote poetry through high school. In college, I was in the creative writing program in poetry, and my thesis was actually a volume of original poetry with I think it was a 10-page introduction. You had to write a 10-page introduction and discuss who influenced you and all that kind of thing. It was really fun. It was actually tons of fun. I got the best thesis ever, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't have to sit in the library, poring over dusty tomes of research. I literally could go sit under a tree with my legal pad and write poetry. Now, it had to be, vetted and edited, and I worked with an advisor through the whole year, and, it wasn't like I could just write a poem and slap it in the book. It had to be there for a reason. And then you had to arrange them in a certain way. Anyway, you don't want to know all that. So I wrote poetry until I graduated, and then I had to get a job and actually make money. And as you can imagine, writing poetry is not really a good way to do that. So I went into retailing, then I went into computers, and then when my son went into first grade, so it was an all-day school day, I sat down and wrote A Bridge to Love, which was the first of my books that got published. I had actually written one romance novel before that, but it was truly terrible, and I made every mistake a beginner can make in that. So that shall never be published. I don't even know where it is anymore, honestly. So I wrote A Bridge to Love, and it was published in 2003, which actually is a nice segue. So thank you for asking, Diana, into the fact that next month will be the month that A Bridge to Love was published 20 years ago. So I will be celebrating next month my 20th anniversary of being a published author. Woohoo! Very exciting. And you guys, I'm letting you in on a secret here. I'm going to reduce the prices of my 3 standalone novels because I think a lot of people aren't familiar with them. So, Bridge to Love was the first one, Shower of Stars is the second one, and Music of the Night is the third one. So, I'm going to drop the price on all 3 of those to 99 cents in August to celebrate my 20-year anniversary of being published. So, perfect question, Diana. Thank you so much. And then Diana also asked, have you done a book of poetry? No, not other than my thesis, which was a book of poetry. I have not, I really kind of stopped writing poetry after college. I think I wrote a couple of more poems, but you know, when you have to make a living, you kind of stop doing stuff like that, sadly. I still love to read poetry. I have a giant bookcase full of poetry books that I, you know, pull one down and read a few poems. I'm a big fan of Billy Collins. Yeah, so still love poetry. Okay, so Helen asks, how do you come up with thoughts and plots for a new book? Oh, well, I start with characters, honestly. It's always about the characters for me. So Caleva is now kind of easy because once I built the cast of characters in Caleva, Gabriel, his parents, Lorenzo and Helen, Luis the king, Raul the prince, and Mikhail the head of security, I sort of had a ready-made set of characters to work with going forward. How did they get built in the first place? Magic. People ask me, what is your process? I'm actually afraid to analyze it because I'm afraid I'll break it, because I really do think it's magic. Characters run around in my head. What can I say? I'm a very visual writer. I see them. I'm a very oral writer. I hear their voices in my head. And then the characters really drive the plot. So depending on what the character's backstory is, what the character's flaws are, what their issues are, I try to throw the plot, make a plot that tests them on all those fronts. And I find a partner for them that also will test them on all those fronts. Someone it's not, obviously the road to true love has to be rocky or it's not interesting, right? So there have to be obstacles to overcome, but I try and make the obstacles speak to the characters. So obstacles that they're going to find especially difficult, honestly, to overcome. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Helen. But where do the characters come from? My imagination. It's just, they're like pearls, they start out as a little grain of sand and I add a layer and then I add another layer and then I add another layer and then I add another layer and they get bigger and they get more complex and they have more backstory and it's just so much fun. It's like the best thing ever as far as I'm concerned to be able to bring these, to me, they're people to life for you because they're alive in here, but I need to find a way to bring them to life for you, my readers. So, okay, what else? Sharon says, wow, 20 years. I know. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Certainly, I don't feel 20 years older. I don't understand how this could have happened because clearly I'm still young and couldn't possibly have written. Well, I've had 18 books published now and written a couple more than that did not make it to the published state. Diana, wow. Yeah, wow, exactly. How could it be that long? It's crazy. Sharon, so nice to see how much you enjoy your job. I do. I truly do. Yeah, it's almost not a job, right? There are parts of it that are definitely work. The writing, I try to make fun. I actually have this sticker that I keep on my computer monitor to remind me that the writing part is supposed to be fun. The business part, not so much. But the writing, every time I start to sort of tighten up and start worrying about, am I putting the right words on the page? Is this scene really necessary? I look at this and say, all of that can be fixed in edits because, of course, all writing is rewriting. Sorry, I'm sticking this back on the computer. All writing is rewriting. I mean, editing is as just as important as writing the first draft, if not more so. So I can fix anything, and I just forget that sometimes. You would think after 18 books that I would be much better at remembering that, but I'm not. In fact, I think it gets harder and harder to remember it the more books you write, because I always joke and say I used up all the easy words with the first books. And now I'm dealing with the hard words. And, that's obviously a metaphor, but kind of true. So I do enjoy the writing. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I enjoy it. The other stuff is not as much fun, the marketing, all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of work. Although things that I love are doing this Facebook Live. This I find fun. I like my newsletter. I find that a lot of fun. I used to really enjoy blogging. I like writing essays, that's kind of my thing. But blogging has kind of fallen by the wayside. So my blog is, fairly inactive. I still do post things on it. If you go to my website and look at my website is nancyherkness.com, very easy. And look at the menu bar across, you'll see blogs, so you can go check that out. In fact, right now, the latest blog is about how Royal Caleva Gabriel got inspired. So, Helen, you might want to go check that out and see how I got that book, where that book came from, because sometimes the plots come from weird places. Music of the Night, which is set in the classical music world. So, Sharon, you'll appreciate this. I wanted to make it a mystery. I wanted to make it romantic suspense, like really suspensey. Ruth! Hi, Ruth from Carlisle, UK. So nice to see you. Must be up very late, Ruth. Thank you for joining me. So I wanted to make Music of the Night suspensey. I'm stealing my thunder from next month. I was going to talk about all this next month, but that's okay. I'll talk about it now. And I didn't really know what the plot should be. I knew that the hero was a classical music conductor in New York, and I knew the heroine was going to be a police detective. So I needed a plot, right? I needed something bad to happen, or I don't know, something suspensey. So Sharon, remember the marching band show from when our daughters were freshmen? It was called Beethoven's 10th. And it was a great show. It was a mashup of various famous themes. Oh no, it was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but it was in different styles. So, it was the rock version or the salsa version or the jazz version. It was a lot of fun. But it was called Beethoven's 10th, and it gave me an idea because there had always been rumors that Beethoven wrote a 10th symphony. But nobody could find it. They'd found fragments of it, and some people have sort of tried to put them together. And I decided that the mystery was going to hinge on the fact that someone finds Beethoven's 10th Symphony. They find the manuscript for Beethoven's 10th Symphony. And then obviously it would be almost priceless. And so people would be willing to murder people for it. And that's what set that plot off. So, right, Sharon? Yeah, fun times. Sharon and I were both band parents and marching band parents, which basically is a cult. You get totally sucked in because it's a lot of time and trekking off to band shows all over the tri-state area, and the kids are just amazing and intense. It's such a great group when they all bond together. It was so much fun. Exhausting. And I'm kind of glad it's over, but it was a lot of fun while it lasted. In fact, I was, the last 3 years, I think, I was head roadie. Yep, me, a roadie. So I was in charge of getting all the musical instruments loaded on the truck that transported them, tied down, making sure they were all there, getting them all offloaded, getting them all onto the field, along with all the props that we needed. It was quite a job. I had lots of wonderful help from other parents, like Sharon and her husband. But yeah, it was a lot of work too, but fun, very fun times. Okay, what else? I see there are some more lists. So, Diana says, wow, 18 books. Is there a place to see a list of them? There sure is, Diana. Again, go to my website,— and if you click on the menu that says books, I'm pretty sure it says books, trying to visualize it. And then the top item is, I think, all Nancy's books. So if you click on all Nancy's books, you will see a page that has all of my books grouped by series, and they're in the proper order in each series. And then the 3 standalone novels are actually down at the bottom together, grouped together as standalone novels. So all 18 of them are there. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you get the Irishman's Christmas Gamble, which is a novella in the Wager of Hearts series, for free. You'll get this for free on Kindle, well, digital, not in print, I'm afraid. Can't afford to send that in print. So yeah, nancyherkness.com. Go there. Be square. I'll actually put the link to the book page in the comments down below here after we get done. Okay? Ruth says it's only 7:30 here. Oh, it's only 7:30 in the UK. Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad. Actually, now that you mentioned it, that was one of the reasons I made my live at 2 p.m. was so my wonderful UK readers could join me, because I have some just lovely, lovely readers and friends in the UK. Love you guys. Okay, and Sharon's laughing. Yeah, as the band. It was a cult. Thank you, says Diana. You are so welcome, Diana. I'm so glad you came by. I'm so glad you posted that note in your refrigerator and you made it. Okay, no other questions? Then I'm going to say goodbye. I do post all my Facebook Lives on my YouTube channel, which I will also put a link in the comments below, in case you just want to go look and see what you might have missed. They're all like this, just casual chat, nothing fancy. And thank you all so much for being here. It was a pleasure seeing you all. I wish I could actually see you all. That would be fun. But pleasure seeing your comments. And thank you for the great questions. Love questions. They're my favorite. And I will see you next Wednesday at 2 p.m. or right here on Facebook Live. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Love seeing you.